Yesterday I put out my review of Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, so now it's time to rank all 7 theatrically released Ninja Turtles movies from worst to best. Number 7 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. The plot of this movie is incredibly stupid and makes absolutely no sense. We introduce a time travel element where the Turtles go back in time to feudal Japan, and Casey Jones is barely in this one, but we have the same actor playing his ancestor. The villain also just isn't as good as Shredder, and isn't nearly as memorable. This is also the only movie in the trilogy to not have the Turtles done by Jim Henson's Creature Workshop, so the turtle outfits we do get in this movie look distractingly different and not at all like the original voice actors turned their roles, so their voices are also distractingly different. Number 6, TMNT from 2007. The movie's biggest problem that assumes you already know about the TMNT lore from the 2003 cartoon. There are a lot of characters like Karai who are from that show, but if you're watching this as a movie on its own, it's pretty confusing. The plot also isn't that interesting. Instead of using some seldom-seen Ninja Turtles villains like Leatherhead or Bebop the Rocksteady or any of the other countless non-Shredder villains, they instead come up with this insane plot about hunting down 13 monsters, and the opening scene feels very derivative of Lord of the Rings. The animation is also very awkward-looking at times, especially Splinter, who looks more like the Cheetos mascot than he does a rat. Casey Jones also doesn't do much in this movie apart from 1 or 2 mildly cool scenes. This is a very confusing, awkward introduction to the world of TMNT. Number 5, Secret of the Ooze. Out of the original trilogy, this is the one that feels the most trapped in the 90s. I mean, there's an entire rap sequence involving Vanilla Ice doing a rap song. Break it down! This movie doesn't really do much to expand on the original, but it doesn't completely rehash the first one either. I'm pretty middle of the road on this one. It's not a terrible movie, but it's also not particularly memorable. Number 4, the movie from 2014. Say what you will about Michael Bay, but I thought this movie was decent. It's a reboot that manages to do something different enough to justify it being made, this time making the Turtles April O'Neil's childhood pets, which I thought was an interesting idea. The movie also has some fun poking fun at its ridiculousness, while they're not as great as the comic relief, and the voice actors for the Turtles get their personalities down pretty well. The writing is pretty mixed, but it's decent. It's not high quality like Pizza Hut, but it's also not so bad that it becomes Little Caesars. It's right there in the middle. It works just enough for me despite some issues with the writing. Number 3, Out of the Shadows. I thought Stephen Bell was decent as Casey Jones, though he was pretty mixed. He's not terrible, but he's not as good as Elias Correa. While Will Arnett's character is also distractingly different than how he was in the previous film. Tyler Perry is unbearable in this, but I liked how this one brought in some more classic characters like Bebop, Rocksteady, and Craig. The film moves a bit too fast for my liking, though, but this one feels truer to the TMNT lore, which is why it's up slightly higher. Number 2, the film from the 90s. This film was a great introduction to the world of Ninja Turtles. The action is fun to watch, the practical effects still hold up, the characters' performances are all fun. It's just a bit too trapped in the 90s, so that's why it's held back a smidge. In first place is Mutant Mayhem. The animation, oh man, incredibly unique. 30 years ago, it seemed like it was only Pixar or DreamWorks who could make these big-budget CGI films. And even 80 years ago, it was just Disney and Warner Brothers as big names in animation. But now, because of the advancements of technology, it seems that anybody could do animations. There's a lot more competition, so other studios really did stand out. The animation looks very grungy and dirty and not as polished as Pixar. That also gives this film a unique look. It also probably has the best cast of a film that came out this year, except for maybe Dungeons & Dragons. Everybody is in this movie. Jackie Chan, Paul Rudd, a ton of people are involved with this. They all do a great job. It was also refreshing to see some more obscure Ninja Turtles villains get the spotlight in this film, because every Ninja Turtles film except this one, and the 2007 movie, as I said earlier, was always focused on Shredder. There's so many other villains they could showcase, and they did that here. I loved all the new villains. The cast did a great job riffing off each other. It's also a very accessible film. The 90s films, like I said, feel very trapped in that specific time period. The Michael Bay films, it's not really clear who the audience for those was. And the 2007 film, it assumes you're already familiar with Ninja Turtles. It gets pretty confusing. But this feels the most accessible for the new generation. It doesn't completely rehash the same origin story as the other films, but at the same time, the new direction they take doesn't feel like a betrayal. I also really enjoyed the little references and throwbacks to the other Ninja Turtles films. The action is fast-paced and fun to watch, has a lot of great humor in it. I only have a couple issues with the film, which are the message about the prejudice is very heavy-handed and repetitive. There is some about profanity that was not needed. They could have easily substituted words. I mean, it is a family film. I like the Turtles. They all looked very unique instead of just the same character design, where their only difference is the color of the masks. The turtles are all different heights, different body types. But yet for some reason Donatello has braces, which is a weird choice. I know it's a dumb nitpick, but I think this movie has a serious shot at being nominated for Best Animated Film. You can tell there was a lot of love put into it. They clearly had a lot of fun making it. They wanted to put out a great movie and not a cheap IP cash grab. They succeeded in that endeavor. The movie was totally awesome, and it comes in at number 1, Cowabunga. So go ahead and share your rank of the Ninja Turtles films that you've seen. You can even include some of the direct-to-video ones, like the Batman vs. Ninja Turtles movie, or the Multiverse Turtles Forever, or whatever you want to include, you can include on your list too. And I will see you next time.